different technologies. So, if you're used to Unity, try building a small game in Unreal. Try building a small game in Rust or whatever it may be that you like. It doesn't have to be Unity. It can be anything at all. Just, try to broaden your horizons and try different engines and that kind of stuff. Use the opportunity that your assignments afford you. So, okay. A lot of the time in uni, it can be really easy to just say, okay, I've got the pass, I've got the merit. That's it. I'm just going to hand it in now because you're swamped with 6 other assignments that you've got due in on the same day. So what I would say to that is just don't look at it in terms of it being an assignment. Look at it in terms of it being something that you're going to show to your potential employer, or something that, you can be proud of yourself, because that's going to be a lot more important than handing in your assignment on time. Handing in it on a time is obviously important, but try to, push yourself that little bit further and try and do something that's really going to stand out on your portfolio. CV and cover letter. Now, I'm going to let Holly take over here because she's going to have more experience in this than me. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
just adding on to what you said about your assignments and stuff and building your portfolio. So a lot of people will build their portfolio from previous work they've done, their assignments, but I wouldn't just leave it there. I think there's so many times that people will submit things in their portfolio that's their first try. And it is so important that if you've submitted something and you think you can do better, just continue to add to that. It's not easy, and there definitely is not enough hours in the world to continue to add to people's portfolios, but you will definitely, the more work you do on your portfolio, you will see more responses essentially from companies. And then of course, preparing yourself going into industry and preparing yourself to start applying to jobs and stuff, you do need your CV and cover letter to be informative, but also be clear and really represent you. So I think your CV, I always recommend people to have bullet points, detail exactly what they do, everything they've done in terms of their university. If you've done any extra projects and stuff, detail them as well and what part you've played in the role, and just put anything you can, and all the stuff that why you think you should be getting the job, add everything into there. Always read job descriptions as well and draw parallels between the job description and your experience, and try and note some things. If somebody wants you to have experience with Unreal, for example, then talk about on your CV the project that you've worked with in Unreal. Your cover letter, now there's a good cover letter won't necessarily get you the job, and a bad cover letter won't necessarily not get you the job. However, it does add value to your application, and it adds more information as well. It creates a picture of what you want and your motivations to moving into a new company as well. So I think I always recommend people to do cover letters, as it just show your passion. And it shows exactly what you want and why you want that position. It can make you stand out from the initial first look. So I always recommend just every reason why you want to work for that company, whether it's Lucid or whether it's someone else, just always do your research. And I always recommend, prior to creating your cover letter, to know a lot about the company you're applying for. Be able to reference things that they've done in their social media, that they've done within the company, and just reference a lot of things in the cover letter so it looks like you know what they've been doing, you've been following them as well, and just to give you a bit more information. That so I'd always make your cover letter just a part of what you want, and to make it your cover letter. There's a lot of templates that go on online, and I have never followed them in any job I've applied for, because I always think just putting a good cover letter out that's you summarising why you want the job, who you are, what your motivations are, is a lot better than a template that's probably been copied by a lot of people.
Yeah. So I think also something that you should mention here is that a lot of people often, they're not sure what to put on their CV because they think it's not relevant to the job they're applying for. So, if they've worked in, I don't know, just a shop down the road or something, and they're applying for a game design job, is that relevant to put on their CV, or is that something that they should leave
So
off?
I
Or
think it kind of depends on what level you're at. I think if, for example, this is in 5 years' time and you've got 5 years experience within game development in companies, and you might not need to add that, and you might need to make your CV a little shorter. However, I think definitely it shows your commitment to work, and it shows, of course, that you have worked previously at the company, whatever it is. It just shows that you've had some sort of responsibility having a job previously. So I'd put anything in. I think you'll be so surprised at who reads the cover letters and how many things they might think, oh, that's so interesting that they have this experience, or they did this in their job that maybe part-time, maybe full-time, maybe isn't relevant to the company. But I think painting a picture of what you have done, what you've done previously, and I think that's what a CV should be, and a cover letter.
okay, interviews.
Yes. I'd carry on with this one. So interviews are so different depending on companies, depending on even managers within companies. I think if you apply for huge companies, your companies like your EAs and stuff like that, then they'll have a completely different interview process to people like us at Lucid. But before applying to jobs and before you go into an interview, normally a lot of places will detail what their interviews are, so you can kind of prepare in that sense. And it's all about preparation and research, is what I would say. Do we go with the next one?
Yeah, so typically, if you apply for Rockstar or you apply for EA or Lucid, I wouldn't expect to get the first one or even the second one that you apply for, just because it can be a quite competitive industry, and thousands of people might be applying for this job, and it's just important to remember that even if you don't get this job, there is something for you in the future. It's just important to not get upset about that, because you might lose one job at one company and get another job at a different company, and you'll prefer this second company. So it's I wouldn't get too upset whether you don't get that first or second job that you apply for, because there will be something in the future.
Yeah, I think as well, timing. I think there's a lot of pressure on people when they finish uni in May that they need to have a job that summer. It is not the case in the industry. I think we've hired 3 people this year who graduated last year in the summer who've been building their portfolios and working and stuff from since then. So I think there's a lot of pressure on you to get a job in the summer as soon as but that is when, of course, there is a lot of competition as well. There's a lot of people applying to jobs. So you may have a few interviews and hopefully you, of course, get the job that you want. But I would also be flexible and remember things take time. So there's no need to put pressure, and companies do hire all throughout the year. They just probably don't advertise it as this huge graduate campaign as when they do in the summer.
Yeah. You might also just want to, you can apply before you finish uni if you want, start applying a few months before you graduate, and then you might have something lined up ready for then. They might say, okay, we'll hire you based on the grades that you get in a few months' time. So apply whenever you feel comfortable with, really.
Yeah.
Again, so technical calls.
Yeah, I think you'll probably know a bit more about a technical call than me, but I think in terms of the process, it is just dependent on companies and what they do. Some companies have technical calls, which I think you had at Lucid Ash.
Yeah. So again, it's entirely dependent on the role that you're going for and the company that you're applying for. But in general, I think you probably should expect just like a technical call or a video call or something like that, just to show your that you know what you're doing, basically your competence at what you're applying for.
And if you don't get the technical call or the technical test sent out to you, be prepared in your interviews that are just with people who are doing the job that you're doing for them to ask you technical questions, because there's so many times where people will say, oh, I didn't realize it was a technical call, and I was thrown off. And it's No, they just wanted to know exactly what you do at this particular point with this software. So I'd always be prepared with what you know and what's on your CV before you go into a call.
Yeah, because I know a lot of times I've applied for jobs and they've all just said, well, I mean, I've gone for the technical test and then they've said, okay, that's the end of the test. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like I've portrayed my worth to you, if that makes sense. So you know, ask questions and bring that to the table for them instead of them bringing it to you, if that makes sense. Yeah, don't worry if you don't know the answer to a question. So they might ask you, you know, what's 64 in binary? I don't know. How do you you know, how do you write a function that does this or this or this? And sometimes you don't know the answer right on the spot, and that's fine. Again, you can what you can do there is instead fall back to your portfolio, you know, so you can say, okay, well, I don't know the exact answer to how to do this, but I have built something in the past that does the same thing, and this is how I implemented this and this and this. So having that big portfolio of things that you can fall back on and say, I have experience doing this, or I haven't done this yet, but I've done something similar. I think that's really important for your employer to know that, you know, even if you haven't done something before, you know how to approach the situation, how to deal with that when you don't know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd always say just be honest. I think a lot of the
Yeah.
time, some people may ask you as well, like a tricky question as well when you're in an interview, and they might see that you know it or they might see that you don't. But I think there's so many times where I've even been in interviews and I've just gone on for 5 minutes on something that's not relevant, and then I think I just wish I said I didn't know that, and make my life a little bit easier.
Yeah, just if you don't know it, you don't know it, and that's what the interview is for. They're trying to know what you do and don't know, and
Yeah,
saying that you don't know something isn't necessarily going to put you in a bad position for that job.
no.
It's knowing how to approach the situation.
And you'll never know everything. Like people who have been in the industry 30, 40 years will not know everything. And there's almost that power in knowing that you don't know everything. And I think if you can openly admit that you don't and own it, I think it's great. But as well, on the topic of questions, of course, at the next point, it says always has questions prepared for your interviewer. I think this is something that there's so many good questions that you can ask interviewers, but I think, and you will ask them naturally throughout the interview, and that answers so many of your questions. And it would get to the end and you'll think, oh, you've already answered every question I was going to ask. I don't want to pretend, or I don't want to seem like I've not been listening. So I would always write down so many questions before the start of your interview and just have so many on different topics and things that you want to know. And you may end up having to ask a lot of questions at the end, or you may only have 5 questions at the end because they've answered everything else. So I'd always just do a lot of preparations, and the questions don't have to be about the job description, about the company. It can be anything. It can be about why that person, how they've got there, how they are interviewing you, why they chose that position. It can be why they chose the company. It can be anything about what the company does. Look at their social media, see what they do on the side, and ask questions about the future as well. I think there's so many questions that can be asked, and I think it's kind of about breaking down the levels essentially and trying to just find out as much as possible about companies.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I know a lot of times I've Googled interview questions to ask the interviewer, and it's just a terrible idea. Don't do that. Just have a genuine think about, this is somewhere that you're thinking about working for the next 2 or 3 years, possibly even more than that. So just have a genuine think about, if you work there, what is your next few years of your life going to look like in this situation? And try to think about something that does matter to you.
What you want to know, if you saw something you think that doesn't, I want to know why they've done that, or anything. I think it's all about you knowing why you want to work there. And like Ash said, it's a big commitment, of course, to move to a company, to choose a company, especially after graduating, for example. But if you have so many questions that you are interested in and things that you want to find out, I think write them down, and yeah, you'll be fine.
And don't lose hope if you don't get it, because, you know, as I said, we know that you're not only going to be applying to this company. Like we understand that, and we understand that you're going to be applying to a ton of different companies at the same time, just because just how competitive the industry is. So, you know, don't lose hope if you don't get this job. Just keep trying, keep applying to different places, and eventually you'll get somewhere that you like. Yeah, so this is for Holly, I think.
Yes. So we briefly touched on it previously that, of course, we have hired people, and we, of course, hired Ash last August after he graduated. So we do have, of course, roles open. So we will have placement years, which is normally people who are in their second year who want to have a year out in industry. We will be advertising for them, but we do accept speculative applications as well, which is on our website. You can see the email to send them to, which is jobs@lucidgames.co.uk. But we also have graduate opportunities. So we will be advertising for junior programming roles, junior design roles, junior art roles, just people coming out of university where it's going to be their first step. So they will be going up quite soon for everyone to look at, but always keep an eye out, like I say, on our website regardless, purely because there's a lot of times where we'll hire graduates all year round. So I mentioned we hired 2 people most recently in February and March, from programming backgrounds who have just graduated, and the jobs are just online. So you might not have thought to look, as it was quite early on in the year, but we advertise them all year round. So make sure you keep an eye out on that. And then experience roles as well. You might not choose to work with Lucid when you finish your degree, but you might choose it 2-3 years later. You don't know. So I think always just know what companies are out there and know exactly who you want to apply for and where you're open to going as well. I think that's the main thing. But all of these roles will be advertised on our website, and first of all on our Twitter and also our LinkedIn mainly. So they go up on our LinkedIn straight away. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, which is Lucid Games. And yeah, as soon as they go out, I think we'll leave them open for a few days and see what applications we get, and then we'll be closing them. So keep an eye out on them. I think we have details further along the slide, so of where to follow and where you'll find us. Here we go. Yes, so like I mentioned, like our LinkedIn, we post all of our jobs there. So have a look at what jobs come up. You'll find our updates in general as well. On Twitter, we of course post a lot in terms of our games that we work on and our jobs as well. And then our Instagram is really just the company culture. We post a lot about what we do as a company on there and our social events and stuff. So kind of different platforms to show different sides of Lucid.
Yeah. So just one last point I want to make is that if you don't necessarily get a job at the company that you apply for, try not to burn the bridge with that company. I know it might seem quite depressing and quite upsetting that you haven't got the job with this company that you're really excited for to get the job for, but don't just brush that company off after you don't get the job, because there might always be another opportunity in the future for you at that place, even if there isn't one right now. So just keep your options open, because the game dev industry is quite closely knit. So everyone kind of knows each other in some way or another. So just keep that in mind and keep your options open, I would say. I think that's mostly it, I think.
Yeah, I think hopefully we can have some questions and
Yep.
That was a great talk. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ash. Thank you very much, Holly. We do have a couple of questions indeed from people on Discord who are talking about this chat and watching it on YouTube. Ash, one of the questions that pop up is, you talked about your portfolio. What are you most proud of in your portfolio when you applied to Lucid Games?
For me, it was one of the projects that I made at Lincoln in my third year. It was the So I made like a procedurally generated city kind of thing that they had all like neon lights and banners everywhere, like a cyberpunk-esque kind of city. Yeah, that was kind of highlight of my portfolio when I was applying. Something that I did in uni. So again, it comes back to putting in the effort into your projects and just doing the best that you can with them.
That's great. Is that something that caught the attention of the interviewers when you showed it to them?
Yeah. Our main programmer, well, my boss, Steve, he was quite impressed with it. He was saying how it was quite interesting to see all these different elements put together and stuff like that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Also, another question that popped up is you said that interviewers know that you applied to other jobs. Did you apply elsewhere, if I may ask? What was your experience of elsewhere? Of course, you don't have to say the names of the company.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've applied to several different places before I got this job at Lucid. I've been to the first stage interviews. I've been in the last stage interviews, and sometimes you really get your hopes up on this one company, like, oh, this is it, that I've got to the second round. I'm in the company now, and it's just it's important to know that even if you don't get this job, there is other jobs for you, and there might even be other jobs for you at this company at a different point, because they might be hiring now or again in another month or another month after that. So just keep your options open.
Oh, that's great. You also mentioned the transition from university to job, and I found that interesting. I know the people on Discord as well. Do you mind exploring that a bit more? How was it for you? How was it overall? Because, yeah, how was it overall?
Exciting, nerve-wracking, all of the above. When you first start on your first project, you've got all these expectations that you're like, oh, I don't want to disappoint the company, or this is a lot different to what I'm used to in uni, because all these different technologies, it's all overwhelming. I've got to learn all this stuff at the same time, and it's your employer knows that stuff. Like, they know that you're new, and they know that you don't know everything about the company or how all these technologies work. So just keep in mind that you can take things at your own pace and just learn as you go, instead of trying to just do everything all at once and trying to impress the company all at once.
No, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
go mean, sorry.
it's just like, you're not used to working on the same thing all day, every day. So it's a big shift in your focus, because you're thinking, at uni, you get bored of one thing for an hour, so you work on another assignment, and then you work on another assignment. You've got all these different things that you can rotate around. And it's kind of the same at work. So if you get tired of doing one thing, you can always move on to a different task and come back to the other one a bit later. So it's just about managing your time and not getting burned out that way.
I think in general, it's a big thing when you finish. I, of course, didn't go straight into games when I finished uni, but as soon as you go into a full-time job afterwards, it is a big shift in focus, is what I would say.
Also, how does it feel like to know that your name will be on a next-gen AAA title?
How does it feel?
Yeah, someone would like to know.
I mean, it feels good. It feels good. It's something you can be proud of, and
Because that's actually a dream of a lot of students, to then go on Steam or pick up a console video game and then just say, hey, check the credits, my name's on it. And I would say that's a fantastic feeling, isn't it?
Funny thing, I haven't actually played Destruction All Stars on the PS5 yet, because no one can get a PS5. So it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Do we have any other questions from the chat, perhaps on YouTube, or people sending me messages on Discord? Would like to know more about Ash, about Holly? The comment that you made earlier about the games industry in the UK being very small despite being very large was interesting, because you're not the first game developer to mention that. We had a couple of people from nearby studios also mentioning that they know other people from other studios, and then they got to know each other over 5-10 years period. And that is really cool as well to hear that from you, from a different area of the UK, how small the game industry in the UK is. So I assume you got to know a lot of games developers over the period that you've been working there, as in from different studios.
Yeah,
I think as well, when it's, of course, you can travel. There's a lot of industry events that you'll go to, and you'll meet so many people, whether that's in the UK, out of the UK, and it then becomes smaller and smaller, the industry, because you start to know people in different companies, different areas, and then you have someone in common that you may have gone to university with or something. It really does. It's a very small industry.
We got a message from Chris Hadlian, who says, "Hello, woohoo, Ash," in the chat. Because Chris
Hi,
Hadlian
Chris.
was one of the lecturers, one of Ash's lecturer back then. I'm pretty sure he was the module coordinator for the PCG stuff that you did.
Yeah, that was the thing on my portfolio I was talking about earlier. So he was the module coordinator for the module that we created that in. Yeah, so about the game industry, we also work with a lot of partners at Lucid. So we work with EA, we work with Sony, we work with all these different companies, and you kind of build up your connections that way as well. So if we're working on a game for one of those companies, we'll talk to people from those companies and liaison back and forth and stuff. And also just people have they haven't all been working for Lucid forever. They've been to different companies in the past, and you can talk to all these different people who've worked in these different companies and had all these different experiences, and it's a good way to get to know people in the industry like that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. Do we have any more questions from the chat, or should we think of a couple of closing words or some words of wisdom that from the games industry that you'd like to tell our viewers, our first year games computing viewers or computing student viewers, or people who are getting ready to join the game industry, building up their portfolio, building up the experiences of interviews? Any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with them?
I would just say prepare as much as possible. I think you can start your portfolio from whatever age you want, and I think just the preparation you can have for that time when you are ready to apply to companies is so key. I think you can prepare in terms of what companies you want to work for, and what roles you want to work for, what technologies you want to do. So I think preparation is key in terms of, it seems probably like you're preparing too soon, but it's never too soon to prepare. Yeah, that's probably mine.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is like finish your time at uni and then be like, oh God, what do I do now? I'm not ready for this. I've got to get a job. I've got to do this and this. So make sure you're prepared for when uni finishes, and just have a loose plan in place. Obviously, you can't expect to say, I'm going to work for Lucid, I'm going to do this and do this, because you don't know what's going to happen. So just have a loose plan in place of what you want to do with yourself.
A couple of questions in the chat as well from Chris. What's your top tips for portfolio? Like, if you had the top 3, what would you say that is important to have? Well, of course, you were saying about something that is visually impressive, like the PCG stuff that you did. I assume something else that you say that is important, that from experiences. Holly, when you're looking at portfolio, is there anything in particular that you want to see?
I would just say make it clear what work you've done. There's just so many times when we receive portfolios and they're from group projects which are excellent, but we can't understand exactly what input you've had. So I think either detailing that or letting us know, or I think showing your work as well. So small projects alongside these group projects that you will have is probably one thing we would advise people to do.
Also, another thing is that make it really clear. Like, make it really easy to see what you like your portfolio, because employers don't want to be looking through 5-6 different pages on your website to get to the thing that they want to see. So just put it like right on the front page. These are my projects. These are the languages they're programmed in. This is what I did on this project, and make it really clear and easy to see. Don't have any like cluttering or anything like that. Just straight up, this is my project. This is what I've done. Have some nice screenshots, some videos, that kind of thing.
Straight to the point. Yes, yeah. Do you think it's useful as well to have code snippets or have your code of your example ready for people to download, or is it more about videos and nice screenshots?
If they've got the code on GitHub or something, that's always good for us to look through and see what their coding style is and that kind of thing. But again, a lot of these things on their portfolio is going to be from game jams, and game jams are notorious for having just awful code bases. So we understand that, but also just keep in mind that don't put on your worst work. pick and choose your best work, is what I'll say.
Best work first and foremost, yes, and then little stuff on the side, just in case, to make stuff more interesting. Yep. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. All right, it's 10:02. Any more questions in the chat? I'm looking at Chris. He most likely got a couple more questions. Or other people in the chat, do they have any questions? I'm checking Discord. No, all quiet. That's good.
Okay.
That is good. So I think, Holly, Ash, thank you very much for your time. That was very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it. Are the slides, do you think, will be available somewhere online, or especially for stuff like the couple of links that you showcase, or I can add them on YouTube as well, because I've added a link for your YouTube page, for instance, with all the couple of videos that you showed, like the live at Lucid Studio.
Yeah, I think we can probably get the slides uploaded somewhere, I think, possibly.
I will discuss that on Discord. We'll discuss that on Discord later. Yep.
Yeah,
same for the couple of links.
There's a lot of
streams. Yep. That's great. Ashley notes, you guys are available on LinkedIn.
Yes.
That is great.
Yep.
Yes, I keep telling people to create a LinkedIn account and to populate it, because I find it useful.
LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn is great for meeting people in the industry, and also just it's also good for recruiters, because I know a lot of people who have been hired off LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So if your LinkedIn is up to date with all your portfolio and your CV and stuff, so that's always a good thing, I think.
Definitely. It's good for searching for jobs as well, I think. It's like how we do, we advertise jobs on LinkedIn. A lot of other companies do that as well. And if I'm connected with someone, they have their portfolio up or they have their CV uploaded onto their LinkedIn, I can share it with hiring managers as well. And yeah, I think it's a good way to get hired.
Yep. I think that's it, isn't it? I've put my email there, but please don't ask me about any applications, because I can't answer them. So if you apply for a job at Lucid, don't email me about it, because I can't tell you. That's all I'll say with that. If you have any other general questions, feel free to email me, but don't ask about
that. That's great. All right, so I would like to thank Holly and Ash. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for sharing your experiences and telling us more about Lucid Games, about the enrollment, about the process, about the portfolio work, of the importance of portfolio. And thank you very much for taking your time. Unless there's any other last-minute questions in the chat, I think that's it for now. Thank you very much. So guys,
thank you for having us.
Have a look at Lucid Games, have a look at their website, have a look on YouTube, have a look at their jobs offers. They're always looking for more talent, as they say. And I'm confident you could be the next person working for them.
All right,
so,
great.
Yep. So thank you very much. I'll see you around. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.